Just wanted to make a little video. Having lots of issues with the Scarlett by Focusrite. This is now my second unit. I returned the first one because it was so problematic, and unfortunately the second one is doing the same thing. It actually worked fine until I ran Mix Control, which is the bundled software, and Mix Control and told me that it needed to update the driver or firmware rather on the Scarlett, and once the firmware was updated, the unit now freezes and disconnects and so on a very regular basis. So just to show you what happens, basically I'm using Reason, and Reason will come up and say your audio driver has stopped working, the bundled Mix Control software comes up and says no hardware is connected. The Scarlett shows this here is a USB light, and the USB light is on. However, if I disconnect the USB cable from the back, this is the USB cable, when I disconnect it, you can hear that the computer just said and basically the computer sees that something got disconnected, but the USB light still stays on the front. If I plug the USB back in, again the computer does make a noise indicating that something has been plugged in, but the light on the Scarlett doesn't work. So if we close down Reason, and we close down the Mix Control, and then we ran the Mix Control again, it still says there's no hardware connected. So the only solution really here is to disconnect the power from the back of the Scarlett. When I do that, of course all the lights go off, and I plug it back in. The USB light now comes on, and now I can run Scarlett, and now the Mix Control works. Now I'm not doing anything crazy here. I got settings. I can set the buffer size. It's set here to 5 milliseconds. The default is around 10 milliseconds. But even at 10 milliseconds, and depending on the sample rates, doesn't really make a difference. I can play music for a couple of minutes and then it will disconnect. And again, all this seemed to happen after updating the firmware. So I'm running firmware version 3.5, and that seems to be the problem. They actually have a newer driver out now, a newer package, Mix Control 1.3, which has a driver 2.5 in it, and that also has a newer firmware. With my first unit, I did update it to the even later firmware, and that also didn't seem to make a difference. So I'm returning this to the store tomorrow. Their technical support has not been very helpful, and they also take several days to get back to you via email. I haven't been able to get anybody on the phone yet, and of course when you want to make music and your audio interface doesn't work, you don't really want to wait a week to get to talk to somebody, so time to find a different vendor.